Hello everyone, this is Madan Raghavan. In today's video, we are going to understand what is JVM, what is JDK, and what is JRE. Before understanding these things, we will understand how the Java code works actually. Let's say you have some Java source code, which will be having the extension .java. Then you will compile this code by using the command javac and the file name with extension .java. After compiling, you will be producing the .class file, which will be called as a bytecode. So this bytecode will be executed in any system. For example, you can execute this bytecode in, let's say, the Windows system, the Linux system, the iOS system, or Mac system. It will execute in the same fashion. How it happens, what makes this bytecode as the cross-platform bytecode? So the JVM comes into picture. JVM will be residing in your system, which makes that bytecode as the cross-platform. Which means that if you give the bytecode to the JVM of the Windows machine, it will execute in the same fashion. And the same for the Linux machine, same for the iOS. But JVM will be implemented based on the architecture, which means that JVM will be the platform dependent. So JVM for the Windows will be different totally from the JVM of the Linux machine. Same for the JVM for the iOS. But however, this bytecode will make that Java code as the cross-platform, which makes that the bytecode you can execute in any system since we have the JVM installed in every system. With this knowledge, we will move to the next level. So overall, if you see what is JDK, JRE, and JVM, so JVM will be the basic mission which will execute your Java bytecode, and JRE, which will be having the Java class libraries just to have the runtime environment for your Java code or .class file, which means that you can execute any Java application, but it needs some source code, or let's say it needs some libraries that will be available in the JRE. Then what about JDK? Let's say if you're only the consumer or the user of the Java applications, you need only set of libraries which will be used for a Java runtime environment. Whereas if you want to development over the Java, same like already existing files, then you will be using some development tools. For example, in previous slide, we have used the Java C, which means that we are creating or developing some Java code. We want to compile that code, which is related to the development activity. So for that purpose, we will be using the JDK, which will have some extra tools for the development. So that's why it will be called as a development tools. So in simple, the underlying or core structure will be JVM. Over the JVM, you will be having the JRE, which will be supporting libraries, and JDK will be the extra development tools, which will support us to develop something on the Java side. So however, you can see some definition about here. So JVM and JRE and JDK. But this definition, you can get it from Google. But however, we have installed already Java in our system, right? So where we can find this? Now, another point to be noted is JVM, there are two categories. One is like JVM specification, another one is JVM instance. Since we have already discussed here, this JVM will be platform dependent, which means that Windows has its own JVM, whereas Linux has its own JVM. But in some definition, you might be seeing here, JVM does not physically exist. So this will be a little confusing. Why means that we have seen JVM will be residing in the system, which will be matching with its own architecture. For example, OS, let's say Windows OS. But here we are seeing physically does not exist. That's where the confusion comes. Actually, if you see the JVM, there are two parts here, JVM specification and JVM, let's say the implementation. Let's consider you are just going to the from scratch. You want to create some language. So you are just creating the specification, how the language should look like. And let's say if you're getting some compile code, and let's say if you're getting bytecode similar to our Java, what has to be done? So you are writing everything like a specification. That will be called as a JVM specification. But this specification will vary for the different OS. That's the reason this specification will be given to each individual OS. That OS has its own implementation for the JVM. That implementation will be available in your system. That's the reason if you see in the JVM of the Windows, it has its own implementation as per the JVM specification. The same for the JVM Linux and JVM iOS. So which means that there is some specification how it has to react when .class files comes. That has to be followed for the individual OS. For example, JVM will be created by following the specification for the Windows OS, and it will be having its Windows JVM, the same for the Linux and iOS. So here we have the JVM. Next one is JDK we have discussed and JRE we have discussed. So let's go to the example how to see the specifications. Here you can see this URL will be shared in the comment section. Here you can see Java virtual machine for the latest version Java SE 16 edition. If you see the HTML version, here you can see they will have each and everything about the language and what are the things we need to just consider. For example, if you just go to the index itself, it takes long, right? So let me go to the very top and click on, let's say, the class file format. If you see here, so the class file format, compile code to be executed Java virtual machine. So this is the specification they have given, how it should look like and what are the things it has to do. And it has the sublinks as well. So you need to go to the chapter 4 to understand more on the class file format. And you can see here primitive data types and values. So what is the maximum, minimum? So what are the limits? Everything can be seen here. So it is just like a specification how the Java virtual machine should be working or should be there. So based on this specification, every OS will have its own implementation. So far we are speaking, we will just explore into our system and see. So let's say simply you cannot see sometimes because it will not be very catchy folder. So it will be inside your, for example, Java 16 have its in this folder. So let me go to that folder and see. Enter. Here you can see. So this is the JVM implementation for the Windows OS. So that's the reason for Windows OS, you will be having the dynamically linked libraries, which has the extension called DLL. So this will be loaded when you want to have the JVM machine. So that's the reason JVM DLL. So this way you can see the implementation of the JVM specification for the Windows OS will be available in this particular folder. Let's say we want to see the JDK folder. It's nothing worry. So we will be directly going to the folder because the name itself is JDK. Here you can see all the files which are required for the development purpose. But we have seen the runtime environment. And if you see the diagram here again, just go to that. So the JDK includes everything JRE and JVM also, right? So that means that we have JDK means the JRE will be obviously inside your JDK only. So that we can see it here. So for example, so let's go to this folder level. And here, just to see jrt-fs. So this is the Java runtime environment, which will be providing the support when you have the runtime or let's say running some Java program in your system. But what are the things that are available in this JDK and JRT that we can see by using some special tools, or we can use the Eclipse. Since we have already installed the Eclipse, we can just see what are the libraries available inside your JRT and inside your JDK. Okay, fine. So we will launch with the default path. So for this, you might be required just to create some sample projects so that you will be having the default libraries attached to that. For example, I have created one sample project. So here you can see the JRE. Here you can see what are the things are available under your JRE. If you see the JRE folder here, you can see directly, it will be jrt-fs.jar. So this is the path. You can see the different options that you can find for the JRE or the Java runtime environment. If you just explore the base, you can see the basic things. For example, if you want to use the language or java.lang package or let's say string math. So those are all the things will be available in these packages. So in simple, this will provide the runtime environment. So by this, we are able to see what is JRE and inside the JRE, what are the things are available, right? So far we have seen what is JVM specification, how it looks like. Let's say if we have the specification where they have implemented in our system. As per our system in the sense, we have the Windows OS. So for Windows OS, what is the implementation, where it is located? That also we have seen. And JRE, so the Java runtime environment they are telling, so where actually it resides. Because if you create any project, this JRE will be available to you. Why? Because in order to run any program, JRE is required. But in order to compile or develop some code, you need to have the JDK as well. That's the reason when you just click on this run button, internally it will be calling the Java C or Java, or it will be combined together. Why? Because we need to compile and run, right? So obviously you will be having Java and Java C commands. It's not only Java and Java C, it will be having a lot of other commands as well. Even you can use the JSL and other commands as well. So in simple, we have seen, if you have the JVM will be the virtual machine which resides in our system. which will be taking care of our bytecode. And in order to get the bytecode, you need to have the compiler. So for that, we will be having the Java C. So here you have the dot class file. In order to run the dot class file, we need to have the JVM. JVM will be using the again command called Java to run the dot class file. And here another point to be noted, or just to recollect, JVM will be the platform dependent, whereas the bytecode will be platform independent. That's the reason once you just compile that code can be executed in any system, considering you have the JVM installed in your system based on your OS. So this is all about the JVM, JDK, and JRE. In simple, we have installed in the starting videos JDK. Obviously, JDK will be having the JRE, but we have installed the JVM unknowingly or indirectly. And we have seen today where is JVM and what is JVM actually. What is the difference between JVM specification and what is the JVM implementation. So this is all about the JVM, JDK, and JRE in our Java. So thanks for watching and have a great day.